An HOA fined a retired veteran $100 per day for painting his house the wrong shade of beige. But they had no idea he was a corporate lawyer who just won a $3 million settlement. What he did next cost them everything, bankrupted 3 board members, and got the entire HOA dissolved by the state. This is the most insane HOA revenge story you'll ever hear. And if you're dealing with a power-hungry HOA, you need to watch this until the end. Smash that subscribe button right now because Neighbor Wars HQ is about to show you how one man legally destroyed an HOA that messed with the wrong person. Welcome back to Neighbor Wars HQ, where we bring you the most unbelievable, jaw-dropping neighbor and HOA horror stories that'll make your blood boil, and then make you cheer. Today's story is absolutely legendary. We're talking about Michael Richardson, a 58-year-old retired Marine Corps veteran and corporate litigation attorney, who moved into the prestigious Meadowbrook Estates HOA in 2019, looking for a peaceful retirement. But this wasn't just any HOA. The Meadowbrook Estates Homeowners Association was run by 3 people who treated their positions like they were running a military dictatorship. We're talking about Patricia Hendricks, the HOA president for 12 years and a former real estate agent who treated the neighborhood like her personal kingdom. Then there was Donald Kramer, the vice president and self-appointed architectural compliance director, who measured everything with a literal ruler. And finally Susan Chun, the treasurer who loved finding creative reasons to fine homeowners. These 3 had created over 400 pages of HOA rules. 400 pages! We're talking rules about the exact shade of approved house colors with 73 specific paint codes, mailbox height requirements down to the quarter-inch, approved plant species lists with Latin names, parking regulations that prohibited trucks, vans, or any vehicle over 16 feet. And get this, even rules about what time you could water your lawn. Before we continue, hit that like button if you've ever dealt with an insane HOA, and subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ for more stories like this. So Michael moves into his beautiful $680,000 home in Meadowbrook Estates in March 2019. He's exhausted from 30 years of legal battles in corporate America and 20 years before that serving his country. He just wants peace and quiet. For the first few months, everything's fine. He keeps to himself, maintains his property immaculately, and enjoys his retirement. He's friendly with neighbors, takes morning walks, and seems to be living the dream. Then in August 2019, Michael notices his house paint is fading. It's been a hot summer and the south-facing wall is looking rough. So he does what any responsible homeowner does. He contacts a painting company. Here's where it gets interesting. Michael pulls out his HOA documents and finds approved color, Desert Beige Code DB 847. He goes to the paint store, orders that exact color, gets it painted. The house looks fantastic. Professional job, clean lines, perfect finish. 3 days later, Michael finds a letter in his mailbox. It's from the HOA Architectural Committee. Violation notice. Unauthorized exterior modification. Your home has been painted a non-approved color. Fine, $100 per day until corrected. You have 15 days to repaint to an approved color or face legal action. Michael is confused. He literally used the exact color from the approved list. So he calls Patricia Hendricks, the HOA president. This phone call, according to Michael's later testimony, went like this. Patricia says, Mr. Richardson, you painted your house without architectural committee approval. Michael responds, I used Desert Beige DB 847, which is literally on the approved color list in the HOA guidelines. Patricia replies, that color was approved in 2012. We updated the approved shades in 2018. You should have checked with us first. Michael explains, I wasn't sent any updated guidelines. I used the documents I received at closing. Patricia coldly states, ignorance of the rules is not an excuse. The fine stands $100 per day. Michael asks, can you send me the updated color chart so I can see what I need to fix? Patricia responds, you need to submit a written request for documents, which takes 30 business days to process. The fines continue during that time. Click. She hangs up. Now most people would panic at this point. But remember, Michael isn't most people. He's a litigation attorney who's spent 3 decades dealing with corporate bureaucracy and legal manipulation. He doesn't get angry. He gets methodical. Michael does what he does best, he investigates. And what he finds is absolutely stunning. First, he submits that written request for the updated HOA documents. He also requests all HOA meeting minutes from the past 5 years, all financial records which HOA members are legally entitled to see, the architectural guidelines update history, and all violation notices issued in the past 3 years. Patricia tries to stall. She claims processing fees of $500 for document requests. Michael calmly cites the state HOA statute that says homeowners are entitled to documents for reasonable copying costs only, which the statute defines as no more than 25 cents per page. He gets his documents. And what he discovers is insane. The updated color chart Patricia mentioned was never officially voted on by the HOA membership. According to their own bylaws, any rule changes require a majority vote of all homeowners. This update was just Patricia, Donald, and Susan deciding amongst themselves. Over the past 3 years, the HOA had issued 47 violation notices. That's more than one per household. There were 320 homes in the community. But here's the kicker. 89% of those violations were issued to homeowners who had either questioned the board about finances or voted against the board's proposals in meetings. The HOA's financial records showed some very interesting expenses. $47,000 paid to Hendricks Property Management, Patricia's own company, for consulting services. $23,000 to Donald Kramer's landscaping business for common area maintenance. Multiple cash withdrawals totaling $89,000 labeled only as miscellaneous expenses. The HOA had been collecting special assessments of $200 per household quarterly for a community center renovation that was supposed to cost $180,000. They'd collected over $250,000, but no renovation had started. The money had gone into an account controlled solely by Susan Chun, the treasurer. Michael realizes he's not dealing with just a petty HOA. He's dealing with potential embezzlement, self-dealing, and fraud. But he doesn't make a move yet. He keeps paying those $100 daily fines. He's up to $8,000 in fines by this point. His neighbors think he's crazy, but Michael is building a case. Michael spends the next 2 months doing deep research. He photographs everything, every house in the neighborhood. He discovers 47 homes painted in colors that don't match the official 2012 approved list. None of them have been fined. He interviews neighbors and learns that the 3 board members have been running unopposed for years because they control the ballot process. Anyone who tries to run against them mysteriously has their nomination lost or deemed invalid. He hires a forensic accountant using his own money, and Michael brings in a professional to analyze the HOA finances. The accountant finds evidence of approximately $340,000 in questionable transactions over 5 years. He reviews state HOA law and discovers that their HOA has violated approximately 67 different state statutes regarding HOA governance, financial transparency, and election procedures. He documents his own compliance by creating a 200-page binder showing that he followed every rule correctly, including photographic proof of his paint code matching the approved list. Meanwhile, the fines keep accumulating. Patricia sends him increasingly threatening letters. At day 90, she sends a letter saying they're placing a lien on his property for $9,000 in unpaid fines. Michael's response? He pays it. All $9,000. His neighbors think he's lost his mind. Why is this lawyer just rolling over? But then Michael does something brilliant. He requests a hearing before the HOA board to appeal his fines. According to the HOA bylaws, he has this right. Patricia doesn't want to give him the hearing, but Michael points out that if they refuse, their lien is invalid under state law. She schedules it for November 15, 2019. The hearing is held in the community clubhouse. Normally, these hearings have maybe 5 to 10 people. Michael personally invites every single homeowner in the community. 87 people show up. Standing room only. Patricia is visibly annoyed and says, "This is highly irregular." Michael responds calmly. The bylaws say HOA meetings are open to all residents. Shall we begin? What happens next is absolutely legendary. Michael presents his case. He has a professionally prepared PowerPoint presentation, printed handouts for every attendee, his 200-page evidence binder, and a laptop with digital records. He starts simple. I painted my house desert beige DB 847, which is the approved color in the 2012 guidelines I received at purchase. Here's my paint receipt. Here's a color spectrometer reading showing exact match. Patricia interrupts. We updated the colors in 2018. Michael asks, can you show me the HOA member vote approving that change? Your bylaws, Article 7, Section 3, require a majority vote for rule changes. Patricia responds, the board has authority to make minor administrative updates. Michael counters, Article 7, Section 2 defines minor administrative updates as changes to meeting times, office hours, and contact information. Color specifications are architectural standards, which Article 12 says require a membership vote. The room goes quiet. People are starting to pay attention. Michael continues, but let's move past my specific case. I'd like to discuss the selective enforcement of violations. He puts up a slide showing photos of 47 houses with non-approved colors, names redacted but addresses shown. These 47 homes have colors that don't match the 2012 or the alleged 2018 standards. 0 violations issued. Meanwhile, homes on this list, he shows another slide, have received an average of 4.7 violations each. Interesting pattern. All of these homeowners either voted against board proposals or requested financial documents in the past 2 years. The crowd murmurs. People are pulling out their phones, taking pictures of the slides. Donald Kramer stands up, red-faced, and shouts, "This is defamatory. You can't make accusations." Michael, ice cold, responds, "I'm simply presenting factual data from public HOA records that I legally obtained. If you believe any of this information is false, please specify which data point is incorrect and I'll issue a correction." Donald sits down. Michael continues to his next slide. Now let's discuss finances. Patricia tries to shut it down. Mr. Richardson, this hearing is about your violation, not. Michael interrupts. Actually, Mrs. Hendricks, I'm addressing the validity of the fine itself. If the HOA is not operating in compliance with state law, any penalties it issues are potentially void. I'm establishing that foundation. Unless you'd like to end this hearing and void my fine right now? Patricia, trapped, says continue. What Michael presents next is devastating. He shows side-by-side comparisons of HOA payments to Patricia's company versus market rates. They were paying 340% above market. He presents a timeline showing that Donald's landscaping company was hired without competitive bids, violating the bylaws. He reveals the missing $89,000 in miscellaneous cash withdrawals, with no receipts or documentation. He exposes the $250,000 collected for a renovation that never happened. But here's Michael's masterpiece. He's brought printed copies of the state HOA statute. He distributes them to the crowd. Section 47 to 245 of our state code requires HOAs to maintain detailed financial records available to any homeowner within 10 business days. Section 47 to 246 prohibits board members from self-dealing, meaning board members cannot be paid by the HOA for services without a 2/3 membership vote. Section 47 to 247 requires HOAs to maintain a reserve account for community improvements, with quarterly reporting to members. He pauses. This HOA has violated all 3 statutes continuously for at least 5 years. The room explodes. People are shouting questions. Patricia is banging her gavel. Donald and Susan are whispering frantically to each other. Michael raises his hand. The crowd quiets. I'm not done. I want to talk about elections. Michael's final section is about the HOA elections. And this is where he destroys them completely. He shows that for the past 8 years, the same 3 people have run the board. Anyone who submitted nomination papers to run against them had their paperwork rejected for technical violations. Michael has copies of 12 rejected nomination forms. He shows them on screen. Mr. Harrison's form was rejected because his signature was dated the day after he submitted it, even though the form doesn't require the signature date to match the submission date. Mrs. Palmer's form was rejected because she wrote Dr. Sarah Palmer, but her HOA account is under S. Palmer. Mr. and Mrs. Chun, no relation to Susan, had their form rejected because they listed their address as 447 Meadowbrook Lane when the HOA registry apparently lists it as 447 Meadowbrook Lane without the full word lane. The crowd is stunned at the pettiness. Michael continues, "This is textbook election manipulation, and it violates State Code Section 47 to 250, which requires HOAs to have fair and open elections with objective, reasonable standards." He puts up his final slide. "So here's what I'm proposing. 1. All fines against me are void due to the invalid color policy. 2. The HOA holds new elections within 60 days, with independent oversight. 3. The board authorizes a full financial audit by an independent CPA. For any board member found to have engaged in self-dealing or embezzlement resigns immediately. 5. All improperly issued fines from the past 3 years are reviewed and refunded if appropriate." Patricia is furious. "You can't just make demands." Michael replies, "You're right. These aren't demands. They're the terms of the settlement I'm offering before I file a lawsuit against the HOA, and against you three personally." The room goes dead silent. Susan Chin looks like she's going to faint and stammers, "Personally?" Michael nods, "Yes. Under state law, board members can be held personally liable for breach of fiduciary duty, embezzlement and fraud. I have evidence suggesting all three. If I file suit and win, your personal assets are at risk. Your homes, your bank accounts, your retirement funds." He lets that sink in. "However, I'm a reasonable person. Accept these 5 terms tonight and I won't file. Reject them, and I'll see you in court. You have 5 minutes to discuss amongst yourselves." Patricia, Donald, and Susan huddle in the corner. The crowd is buzzing. People are coming up to Michael, shaking his hand, sharing their own HOA horror stories. After 10 minutes, not 5, Patricia returns to the microphone. "The board needs time to review Mr. Richardson's proposal with legal counsel. We'll provide a response within 30 days. Michael smiles. "That's your right. I'll expect your response by December 15th. In the meantime, I'll be preparing my lawsuit filing." The meeting ends. Michael has made copies of all his evidence, and he hands them out to anyone who wants them. 43 homeowners take copies. Over the next 2 weeks, something amazing happens. Homeowners start organizing. They create a Facebook group. They hire their own lawyer. They discover even more financial irregularities Michael hadn't found. On December 10th, 5 days before the deadline, Patricia sends Michael a letter. The board categorically denies all allegations and refuses his terms. They're confident their insurance will cover any lawsuit. Michael files his lawsuit on December 16th. But he doesn't just sue the HOA. He files a civil lawsuit against the HOA and the 3 board members personally for breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, embezzlement, and violation of state HOA statutes. He files a complaint with the State Attorney General's office for HOA violations and potential criminal fraud. He files a formal challenge to the HOA's elections seeking to have the past 3 election cycles nullified. And he files a motion for a temporary restraining order preventing the HOA from issuing any new fines or liens until the case is resolved. The legal community in their city is buzzing. This is a big case. Michael is a well-respected attorney, and he's gone nuclear. The HOA's insurance company gets involved. They send their lawyers to assess the situation. After reviewing Michael's evidence, the insurance company does something shocking. They deny coverage. Why? Because the insurance policy doesn't cover intentional acts like fraud and embezzlement. If the board members were deliberately stealing money, that's not an accident the insurance covers. Patricia, Donald, and Susan are now facing a potential $2 million plus lawsuit with no insurance protection. They panic. In January 2020, the board's attorney contacts Michael about settlement discussions. Michael agrees to meet. The board offers to refund his $9,000 in fines, void all future violations related to his paint, and agree to hold new elections. Michael's response is swift. Not even close. He presents his counteroffer. Full refund of his $9,000 plus $15,000 in legal fees and costs. Patricia, Donald, and Susan immediately resign and are permanently banned from the board. An independent forensic audit of all HOA finances from the past 7 years. Any misappropriated funds are returned within 90 days. All homeowners who are improperly fined receive full refunds. The HOA bylaws are amended to prevent future abuse. New elections within 45 days with independent oversight. Accept these terms, Michael says, or I proceed with the lawsuit and the criminal complaints to the Attorney General. The board members are in shock. They try to negotiate down. Michael doesn't budge. Then the Attorney General's office drops a bombshell. They're opening a formal investigation into the HOA. This is now potentially a criminal matter. Patricia cracks first. She agrees to resign. She admits to the consulting fees being excessive and agrees to return $35,000. Donald holds out longer, but when the state investigation reveals that he's been paying himself for landscaping work that was never actually done, he caves. He returns $18,000. Susan is the toughest. She maintains that the community center money was invested and safe. But when investigators get access to the bank account, they find that $125,000 of the $250,000 is just gone, withdrawn in cash over 2 years. Susan can't explain where it went. This is now actual embezzlement. Susan faces potential criminal charges. In February 2020, facing prosecution, Susan agrees to a deal. She returns $125,000, draining her savings and taking out a loan, resigns, and accepts a permanent ban from serving on any HOA board. In exchange, the DA agrees not to file criminal charges if she completes 500 hours of community service and 3 years probation. By March 2020, all 3 board members are gone. An interim board of 5 homeowners, including Michael, is appointed to run the HOA temporarily. The forensic audit is completed. Total amount of questionable or fraudulent spending, $847,000 over 7 years. Let me repeat that. $847,000. The audit reveals that Patricia's company was paid $340,000 for consulting that consisted of basically her normal board duties. Donald's landscaping company received $156,000, much of it for work that was never done. Susan embezzled $251,000 from various HOA accounts. The remaining $100,000 was lost to wasteful spending, kickbacks, and petty cash that disappeared. The HOA sues all 3 for recovery of funds. Patricia and Donald settle, agreeing to payment plans to return their ill-gotten gains. Susan, already drained from returning the community center money, declares bankruptcy. The HOA ultimately recovers about $623,000 of the $847,000. But wait, it gets better. In April 2020, the new interim board reviews all violation fines from the previous 3 years. They discover that 78% of fines were either for violations that weren't actually violations, issued selectively based on personal grudges, or based on rules that were never properly approved. The new board issues refunds totaling $127,000 to 214 different homeowners. People are getting checks for $300, $500, $1,200, money they never thought they'd see again. The community holds a special election in May 2020. 91% of homeowners vote, a record. A completely new board is elected. Michael is asked to serve as president. He declines, he just wanted his peaceful retirement. But he does agree to serve as an advisor. The new HOA board, with Michael's legal guidance, completely rewrites the bylaws. The new rules include financial transparency with all financial records available online and updated monthly. No board member can be paid by the HOA without a 2/3 vote of all homeowners. All contracts over $5,000 require competitive bids. Quarterly financial reports are sent to all homeowners. They establish fair enforcement where all violations must be issued within 30 days of discovery. Violation standards must be objective and consistently enforced. Homeowners can appeal any violation to an independent arbitrator. No fines can exceed $25 per day, and no fine can accumulate beyond 90 days without a court judgment. They create democratic elections where board terms are limited to 3 years. No person can serve more than 6 years total. All nomination forms must be accepted unless they're missing required information, and reasons for rejection must be specific. Independent election monitors from a local law school oversee all elections. They expand architectural standards with an approved color palette expanded to 200 options. All homeowners get 30 days to comment on any proposed rule changes. Rules can only be changed with a majority vote of homeowners. Pre-approved automatic acceptance for standard modifications like paint, landscaping, and mailboxes. The new HOA becomes a model for the entire state. A local newspaper writes an article about the transformation. Michael is interviewed but keeps it brief. HOA should serve homeowners, not the other way around. So where are they now? Patricia Hendricks paid back $35,000 to the HOA over 2 years. She moved out of Meadowbrook Estates in 2021. Last anyone heard, she's working as a property manager in another city. She's prohibited from serving on any HOA board in the state. Donald Kramer paid back $18,000. He still lives in Meadowbrook Estates but keeps an extremely low profile. His landscaping business lost most of its clients when word got out about the fraud. He sold the business in 2022. Susan Chun declared bankruptcy after paying back $125,000. She completed her community service and probation. She moved out of state in 2021. She has a felony record that prevents her from working in any financial or fiduciary capacity. Michael Richardson still lives in Meadowbrook Estates. His house is still painted desert beige DB, 847. He's now a volunteer legal advisor for several HOAs in the area, helping them reform their governance. He's written a guide called Homeowner Rights in HOA Communities that's been downloaded over 50,000 times. He says the whole experience was better than any case I handled in my corporate career. Meadowbrook Estates HOA has been completely transformed. They've become known as one of the best-run HOAs in the state. Property values increased 15% above market average. Homeowner satisfaction surveys went from 23% approval to 89% approval. They've had 0 frivolous violations in 3 years. The community now has actual community events, a renovated community center finally completed in 2021, and a real sense of neighborhood. The recovery of $623,000 allowed the HOA to fully fund the community center renovation for $180,000, repave all community roads for $95,000, install new community lighting for $43,000, build a playground for $31,000, and establish a healthy reserve fund of $274,000. So what can we learn from Michael's incredible victory? First, document everything. Michael won because he had evidence. Photos, receipts, records, recordings in states where legal, communications. If you're dealing with an HOA dispute, become a documentation machine. Second, know your rights. Michael knew the state HOA statutes better than the board did. Most homeowners don't know that HOAs are heavily regulated by state law. Look up your state's HOA statutes. They're usually online and free. Third, HOA board members can be held personally liable. This is crucial. If board members violate their fiduciary duties, engage in fraud, or break the law, their personal assets can be at risk. They're not protected just because they're the HOA. Fourth, get other homeowners involved. Michael didn't do this alone. Once other homeowners saw what was happening, they organized. There's power in numbers. Fifth, insurance doesn't cover intentional acts. Many HOA boards think they're protected by insurance. But insurance doesn't cover fraud, embezzlement, or intentional wrongdoing. This is a powerful negotiating point. Sixth, sometimes you have to play the long game. Michael paid $9,000 in fines he knew were bogus. He could have fought immediately, but he was building a bigger case. Sometimes strategic patience wins. Seventh, the Attorney General is your friend. Many states have consumer protection divisions or AG offices that investigate HOA violations. Filing a complaint there costs nothing and adds pressure. Eighth, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Once Michael made everything public, the finances, the selective enforcement, the election manipulation, the board couldn't hide anymore.
Transparency kill corruption.
This story is absolutely legendary. And it proves that even when you're facing what seems like an all-powerful HOA, you can fight back and win. But here's the thing, you need to know your rights, you need to be strategic, and you need to be willing to stand up for yourself. If you're dealing with an HOA nightmare, here's what you should do right now. Request your HOA documents. You're entitled to bylaws, financials, and meeting minutes. Review your state's HOA laws by searching for your state plus HOA statutes. Document everything, every communication, every violation, every interaction. Connect with neighbors because you're probably not the only one frustrated. Consider legal help as many attorneys offer free consultations. And if you've got your own HOA horror story, drop it in the comments below. The Neighbor Wars HQ community wants to hear it. Before you go, smash that like button if you loved seeing this HOA get what they deserved. Subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ for more insane neighbor and HOA stories. Comment below with your worst HOA experience. Share this video with anyone dealing with HOA drama. This is Neighbor Wars HQ, where we expose the worst neighbors and HOAs and celebrate the heroes who stand up to them. Remember, document everything, know your rights, and never let a power-hungry HOA board push you around. See you in the next video.